Well, welcome to Victoria, everybody. As you probably know, I'm a Willows, Lansdowne, Oakay High guy who grew up behind the tree curtain in Oakay, and then, of course, came back here as a temporary employee of the people for 10 years in the legislature. So I'm delighted to be back in Victoria, which is a lovely place. It's a great city, and we're blessed to have places with the kind of climate that we have here. I just got back from 2 weeks in Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax. They still have snow on the ground in Halifax. The cab driver told me that they got 12 feet of snow. And the snow was so high that the guy had to come to snowblow his driveway. Couldn't get it up high enough, so they had to bring in a front end loader. Can you imagine living like that? Oh, man. So they really hated me. I said, oh, gosh. Well, we had crocuses come up in January, and then the daffodils came early, and oh, you should see the cherry blossoms. Oh, and the rhododendrons were just starting to get ready. They hated us. We tell that sort of stuff. So what I wanted to do is to come, because I really think it's neat that this citizen-led Greater Victoria community conversation about the future is the way things happen. If you wait for politicians to make it, you're going to wait a long, long, long time. And that's how we changed Vancouver. That's how we stopped the freeway. It was led by citizens from right across the political spectrum. They said, we don't want an elevated freeway to go on Stanley Park to the North Shore. Elevated like the Garden Expressway. Can you imagine that? Across the waterfront of Vancouver. Wipe out Gastown, Chinatown. Destroy Strathcona, Gravity Village, and Hastings with an 8-lane freeway. Wipe out all those fine old neighborhoods, houses, and replace them with high-rise, low-income, instant slums. And that was citizen-led. That was people rising up in the path and saying, that's not the kind of future we want for our city. Maybe the future that Detroit wants, look what they got. Or Los Angeles got. We don't want that. And so the initiative you're taking to look at governance of Victoria, and I would argue Vancouver in the 21st century, is really important. So I congratulate Susan, you and the organizers, and those of you who came out here tonight, because that's how it's going to change, is for you to have a really good dialogue with your fellow citizens, reach an agreement on whether you want to keep the status quo or not. You don't. I don't. And what the other alternatives are. And then push for it. So I wanted to comfort you by letting you know this isn't just a Victoria issue. I know you know that. But one of the areas that I'm involved in is to work with people all over the world to deal with the 21st century reality that we are an urban species now, Homo urbanus. And if you look at the figures, they're really quite extraordinary. Our species grew from 2 billion people in 1930 to 6 billion in 2000. And we're probably going to end up about 10 billion of us on the planet by 2050. Now, I'll comfort you a bit. There's some people that say that the population is going to start shrinking, will be back down to 2 billion by 2150. I don't think we're going to be around to prove that or not. But the fact is that our population, human population, has grown dramatically for a whole bunch of reasons. But even more specific, that growth has happened in cities all over the world. So you've got cities that are chunk-chank 30 million people in the region. Cities like Calcutta, Cairo, Mexico City, 15 to 20 million people, Sao Paulo. And most of the people are leading really bad lives in slums, without proper services, without safety. we've created a horse trade. Our cities are, significantly higher quality of life than that, but our species has a real problem that we've messed up on the major phenomenon that we live in cities. And the fact is that that population I just told you about, in 2000, there were 6 billion people on the planet, 3 billion in rural areas, and 3 billion in urban areas. And of the next 4 billion people that are coming on the planet, they're all in the cities. So we're going to have 7 billion people living in cities by 2050. So how are you going to provide homes? How are you going to deal with water, employment, sewer, health, education, housing, sewage? Did I bring that up with Victoria? Garbage. Just the basics. It's a huge undertaking. There's a study that I can get you a copy of by Buzau, who was a major, they're joining somebody else a short while ago. But Buzau did a study in 2008 that said that to deal with that massive growth of the world's population is going to require, over the next 25 to 30 years, $350 trillion.
Someone just fell off their chair.
Can you think?
No.
That big? I mean, it boggles my mind. And 185 trillion of this is private sector investment. 165 trillion is public sector investment. So that's about 12 to 14 trillion dollars a year on a world economy of $7 trillion. That's somewhere between 16 and 20% of the world economy. Mr. Harcourt, Europe, Greece, the heads of China, India. If you really want to get with the major industry, the major opportunity to kickstart the world economy, there it is, right? And you do it right. Don't do more of the same. Don't build more freeways so you get more congestion. Don't build more big pipe solutions. There's a whole different way of thinking about cities that's starting to happen. A number of cities are moving in this direction in the Scandinavian countries, some cities in Canada, places like Singapore, Hong Kong, Portland, Oregon, New York City. Some cities are starting to get sustainability and starting to move to integrate those kinds of values. Canada has been struggling with disurbanization. In 1867, of course, we came together as a country, and we were then 20% urban, 60% rural. And municipalities, cities were kind of, oh, by the way, part of Section 92 of the Constitution. Stuck somewhere between mental patients and mules as the responsibility for the province to take care of it. Well, when I did a study, as was mentioned, for Prime Minister Martin in 2003 and handed it in 2006, we talked thousands of people across the country, of every background. And we discovered that Canadians are very proud of the place they live. And most Canadians, 50% live in 9 big cities. 30% live in 110 medium-sized centers like Victoria, Florida. And 20% live in rural areas, but 15 of that 20% are what I call people living in the rurburbs. They live beyond the jurisdiction of Victoria, but they leech on the services. They don't pay taxes, but they use the cultural and the recreational and the other facilities. Well, that's where most of the rural people live, is within half an hour or an hour of the 120 big medium-sized cities, where 95% of us live. So they live in the inner city. Some are thriving, some of the inner cities are thriving, like Vancouver. They live in the suburbs, and some of those suburbs are thriving and changing, like Surrey, where they created, grow up, out, and link your city centers to transit and a whole bunch of other moves like that. So we saw that Canadians were a highly urbanized group, and the urban issues don't have the oomph they should affordable housing, transit, childcare, dealing with mental illness, addiction, and poverty. Those are really important issues that affect you on Government Street in inner city, that affect women who want to get back in the workforce. And we're losing those productive people because we don't have childcare. The Norwegians are so far ahead of us, I mean, it's embarrassing. Hello, Alberta, you hear that? With what has happened to your oil well that you squandered. They put it in childcare. They put it in early childhood education. They put it into getting women back in the workforce. They put it into adding value to their economy, into diversifying their economy, into investing in infrastructure. Norwegians are very smart people, and you know, at the end of the day, they have $1 trillion heritage fund. Alberta's got $16 billion. After the same amount of time, pulling oil out of the ground. So we put in this report to the Prime Minister that there is a very strong national role in cooperation with the provinces and cities to flip the way we govern this country. Change 1867 to realize that the places are where most Canadians are, and they're mostly in 120 big medium cities. And you should devolve powers and tax resources to cities to have the resources to do all these things that we need to get done. And to do it jointly rather than in a pinch kind of they're just cities, you know, they're just sewer pipes and they're just transit systems. I have no idea why we have to have a plebiscite on transit in Vancouver, but the Fort Van Bridge and the Massive Bridge get built by fiat in the province. Is there something wrong with that picture? You know, or why don't you have your light rail or bus rapid transit for the western communities into downtown? So the you know, the crawl doesn't happen anymore. So we reported in that there is a national role. It has to be a cooperative one between the national government, provinces, and where 95% of Canadians live. And don't ignore, you know, the 5,200 to 5,400 communities in Canada, most of whom are around the big cities, but there's small, rural, remote communities and natural resource communities who have to mine and do gas and forestry and rely on natural resources. You know, that's the basis of the other part of the Canadian economy. Aside from those recommendations, we said we need to increase the infrastructure funding. And Jacques Chrétien in 1993, after 20 years of not investing in our cities by the national government and most provinces, Jacques Chrétien started the infrastructure program. We used to call it Winter Works back in the 50s and the 60s. And he, to his credit, put $1.2 billion a year into infrastructure to cost share with the provinces and with municipalities. We immediately put that work in Vancouver to do the $700 million Addison's Island sewage treatment plant. To reduce the pollution going into the Fraser River to 7%. And things like the Standing Theater for the Arts Club, you know, good community building, things like that. And when I was premier, I put aside $140 million to do a $400 million sewage treatment plant. Guess where? Right here in Victoria. And to my astonishment, we had a Minister of the Environment, David Anderson, who said, no, dilution is the solution. Is that debate still going on here? It's unbelievable when you think about it. You know, it's you know, here are a lot of environmentalists who believe in the principle of being proactive. You know, the prevent harm. It seems to me that qualifies pretty well. I mean, unfortunately, when I did it, the scientists were split 50-50. They came back and said, Premier, our answer is yes. Maybe it's no. They didn't help very much. Anyway, Chrétien came through with $1.2 billion a year. It was matched by the provinces and matched by the cities. And we got on with trying to catch up with 20 years of neglect of infrastructure. Montreal is so far behind with neglecting their infrastructure and the corruption and the mafia and all the mess that Quebec politics has been for far too long. They have $9 billion of leaky water pipes in that space. They got overpasses that are falling down. By the way, don't drive on the Champlain Bridge. I mean, you know, the state of a lot of our city's infrastructures needs to be replaced. And we need to deal with growth. We need to deal with growing population. So we have things to do that started in '93, and then Paul Martin, to his credit, in 2005-06, listened to the Federation of Municipalities and agreed to add to that 5 cents equivalent of the national gas tax, which comes to about $2 billion a year. It sort of ramped up from 400 or 600 million to $2 billion. So we now have $3.2 billion going into municipalities, cost shared with the provinces and with municipalities they can afford. And Stephen Harcourt, I'm an independent citizen now. I did not renew my membership in the NDP, so I can be equally ugly to every political party. Or I can compliment Stephen Harcourt agreed to keep that infrastructure flow going, and agreed in the last budget that there would be $50 billion from the federal government, $5 billion a year, that would go forward into infrastructure. There's money there if you want to fix your sewage treatment plant, Victoria. But we still need more, because the Federation of Municipalities says we need about $200 billion to really catch up on the problems of our cities. Now, along with this massive urban tsunami, this huge growth internationally in Canada and in Victoria and Vancouver. And we grow in Vancouver 35,000 to 40,000 people a year in a very tough geography, right? You've got the mountains, the sea, the border, the farmland to the east, the Fraser River going through it. And we have to accommodate 35 to 40 million people, or 35 to 40,000 new people a year coming in after one too many 47 low winters in Winnipeg. Or trying to get money out of China or wherever they're coming from. And I think what you have, and the reason I'm here out of admiration for what you're doing, is you have honed in on the other important aspect, even if you get all the substance right, of how to have a sustainable city with a prosperous economy, a healthy environment where you can breathe the air, drink the water, eat the food without being poisoned, protect biodiversity, deal with social equity, social justice issues like homelessness and poverty, drug addiction, mental illness, and a creative and innovative culture. Those are the 4 values you try and link into a sustainable city and community strategy. Even if you got all that together, if you got a 1867 or even the 20th century governance structure, you're going to be hampered because decisions don't get made that should be made, right? Because mayors say, well, that's your money, you know, you have to talk about that. So you honing in on a 21st century governing structure is fundamental to getting all those other issues able to be addressed properly. So I want to congratulate you for starting the process. I want to congratulate you for having the plebiscites and in what 8 municipalities, 75% of people said, we want change, right? You had polls that came out and said basically the same thing. I'm here to tell you, it ain't going to happen without a push. Not just the municipalities, but the provincial government. The province is key, and they have to stop chickening out. We don't touch us to conversion. If we said that in the 1991 to 96 period, that taking on the war in the woods was too controversial, too tough, we would have still had 100 civil wars happening between environmentalists and loggers and First Nations people. Instead, we set up a really rigorous, tough process where people had to sit down and talk to each other. What do we want? How are we going to do it? What's going to be protected? Added 500 new park and wilderness areas, a whole bunch around Victoria, a whole bunch around Vancouver. Set up for the first time a treaty process of recognition that Aboriginal rights and title existed, We got people sit down and shout, scream at each other, and you blogger, you environmentalist, you Aboriginal, whatever. And you know what? They worked it out. They worked it out in Vancouver Island, except for Blackwood. The people worked it out in the Caribou Cove. They worked it out in two Kootenays. You think of 4 wilder places that if people agree? We went to the toughest of the tough areas in BC, and they worked it out. And they reached consensus. And if they didn't reach consensus, we made a decision as a government. Here's what we're deciding. And then we went on to the rest of the province, and we did land use planning. And when was the last time you heard of any war in the West? So sometimes you got to just tackle tough issues, right? The advantage of our system is we fire words, not bullets. I'll take our system any day. But I had to dodge buns and Von Palmer. Let's wait. You know, I mean, I'll take that any day over, you know, most of the world's countries where it's bullets, fired bullets. And our system's pretty good. And sometimes the issues are pretty tough. But you got to take them on. So my honest proposal is over the next couple of years, take them on. Here in Victoria. You want the status quo?
No.
13 municipalities, how many police forces? 6, 7, whatever. 8? And you have an overall sustainability plan and a community energy plan and a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Do you have any of those things? So, it sounds to me like the status quo ain't working, right? So here's my modest suggestion. How about going to 3 municipalities? Victoria, Saanich, Squamish, Western communities, 1 regional police force, putting in place beyond 2040 a long-term vision for the Victoria you want. And you can choose 6 or all those choices, right? They're not preordained. I mean, Detroit failed because the people of Detroit decided to have a dead downtown and sprawl suburbs and not work out the racial issues. So the population went from 1.6 billion people to 700,000 people. And they're going to have to bulldoze half the city, turn it into farm and park, and concentrate the rest. Los Angeles, 60% of the city is taken up by the automobile. 60% of the land area in Los Angeles is devoted to cars. And their solution a few decades ago was, wow, we got 6 lanes of congestion on the Santa Monica freeway, let's just build another 6 lanes. So guess what? 2 years later, they had 12 lanes of congestion. Doesn't work. We get 1 transit line in Vancouver called the Canada Line. You ever ridden it? Isn't it fabulous? Do you know the side benefit? It took 10 lanes of traffic from Surrey, Delta, White Rock. 10 lanes of traffic. 1 person, 1 car traffic. Off the Granville Road. So that's kind of, you know, good synergies you get when you do these things right. And so I think there is a second alternative. And there may be others. You know, get 2 or 3 other realistic alternatives and have a dialogue like you're doing tonight. This is the start of a process. If it's run well, not a great labor and good process leads to a better result. And I had to fire a cabinet minister with that process led to more process. No, gone. I want a result. I had to put up with some other cabinet ministers who were being nameless who thought the process was for making cheese. Yeah, they were what I call the ready, fire, aim game. Just do it, you know, be decisive. Even if you're wrong, just be decisive. And I think, you know, a really well done public engagement process will probably give you a better chance of getting to a result that most people can live with, because the education that you go through and understanding people's viewpoints, and don't let the province on, and don't let the existing politicians off either.